Welcome to the first turn. I'm Hyena, and today, Llama and I are making some predictions for the Adepticon reveals, with it looming just a few short weeks away. We talk about some of the Metawatch results, with the new General's Handbook included for Age of Sigmar. We talk about some of the new rules for Kharadron Overlords, and about the new mercenary boxes being released, and where we'd like to see the game go, and more. Enjoy.
Definitely.
So what are we talking about today?
What are we talking about today? Do we have anything new?
I mean, there's a couple things. We got some more Metawatch info from for Age of Sigmar. We got some reporting for a couple of different, with updated rules that have come out recently. Some tournaments for Age of Sigmar. Very interesting. I think the heading off the ogres really kind of put them in their place before they could become a problem.
Must have been.
That's what it seems like.
Yeah. At least on paper.
I still think ogres are a little too overcosted. It's just, you can do so much damage in AoS that it's like, being a 4-wound model isn't that important. You know, like it is, maybe they're a little too many points per wound, or the units that, the size you have to bring them in are a little too big. Something that could be done to help them. Like, their gluttons, their normal ogres, I think, are taking in units of 6. That's rough. That's a big point investment.
It's like unit.
It's like what? Maybe they're lower. Are they 245 now for 6?
Because I thought the cannon. No,
cannon went up.
Something went up, but then the regular ones are.
They went down a little bit.
Yeah,
but it's the unit size that I think that hurts them. It's the same with Slaves of Darkness. If you could bring 5 Chaos Warriors instead of having to bring 10 minimum, that would be nice. But you can't.
It is neat to see in that Metawatch though that graph is getting tighter.
It sure is.
I mean,
but look at the ones at the bottom. Well,
the only 2 that are below 45 are Soulblight Gravelords, somehow.
Yeah.
And Cruel Boys, that weird.
Not surprised by that.
Because on their own, they don't have enough.
Mm-hmm.
They can keep dropping their points and whatever, and it's just, I don't think they do enough on their own. But at the top are still beasts. They were on top before the new book. Mm-hmm. Still seem to be on top post-new book.
Well, I don't think the new book hurt them at all. They only got better or stayed the same. So, the change to the Herd Stone didn't really hurt that much, because you still have it on the turns you want it. Massive improvements to all the different monsters. Massive improvements to all the characters.
Yeah.
There's just so much more in there that they can do. So, I'm not surprised.
And they disclaimered it a bit. They said, we haven't even had 60 days to evaluate the new General's Handbook.
Mm-hmm.
Gloomspite had an enormous jump from bottom to 52%.
Yep.
With the new Blades of Corner somehow at 53, tied with ogres.
Going back and relooking at the War Scrolls themselves, I don't think Blades of Corn are that bad.
Their mortals aren't really usable.
Well, that's what I was looking at. The mortals actually are not that bad.
Well, see, on paper, I always wanted to play them.
Right.
But you ended up using the Slaughter Priest, and then any of them that gave extra movement. Or maybe the Blade Secretor. So, it was their heroes. Mm-hmm. But the infantry, you did Bloodletters and Hounds, and maybe that's still good.
But even looking at them again, I don't hate them. Blood Warriors aren't good. Blood Warriors are the basic, Chaos Warrior. They're not good.
Nope.
But, I like their Chosen equivalent. For 5 guys, and they're only 145 for 5, as opposed to, actually taking Chosen, who are 240 for 5. It's a pretty good trade.
Yeah.
They're pretty decent. Mortal wounds on the hit rolls, they're pretty good for their cost. I don't mind them.
And the Disciples of Tzeentch, that's where the jump starts. So Kharadrons, who haven't even gotten their new book yet, are at 55.
Yeah.
So that's where GW likes the top to be. But you go up 3% to get to Disciples. And this is in the post. This is no longer just a, quote, Tzeentch army playing Archaon, right? Because that's not how either of those books work anymore.
Right.
So I'd be interested to see what those are. They mostly just birds still? Is it?
I would assume. I actually don't know.
Because Kairos and Lord of Change are still real good.
Yeah, they are. I don't think anything's changed with Tzeentch. I mean, I think they're still. I think Tzeentch is their thing is their secondaries are still really easy to accomplish. I think that's why they're scoring so well.
Yeah.
But Slaves of Darkness being down there, bottom 4.
Yeah, they're right at 45.
After their new book came out, is I'm not surprised, because I've played them a bit. And they're not that impressive. Outside of the Chosen, which are very expensive, they're not that impressive.
Yeah. Looks like Bone Splitters have gone up with the new book, or with the new General's Handbook.
Mm-hmm.
And what's the other one here? Hedonites went up a little bit. Man, but a lot of them are getting close to that. Mm-hmm. It's hard, though. I wonder how you can keep those ones at the top without just crushing them. What little things could you do to bring Beast back below 60, you think?
Just a little bit of points changes. Some things are too efficient.
And now it's not just like one build like they were before, right? Yeah, now they're probably...
I like all of the sub-factions. I can find a build for all of them. I really like that book. It's really good.
Well, on the play front, we had at the shop last weekend, and this won't mean much to the listeners, but we had 2 guys show up who used to be regulars in our group years ago, and they haven't played any tabletop game in a while. And they have been coming back in the last few weeks to play 40K. But just like these 500 to 1,000 point combat patrol or narrative or kill team kind of level games, just to get a feel for it, just because hobby-wise they want to keep up with it. And it can feel overwhelming to look at a game you haven't played for a decade and try to jump right into 2,000 points. And then you get your head filled with all the noise about what's going on at the competitive level from some of the players. So they just kind of like skipped all that and like, we're going to do these little combat patrol, maybe plus size games.
I think were they doing a crusade?
And they've been doing crusade stuff. Yeah. And just jumping in there and like having fun with it and getting stuff painted. So that was really cool to see because it's actually exciting them.
I mean, honestly, it's like we said, it's the way to do it.
We talked about that a few weeks ago about like, maybe it's not that you need a new game. You need to look at your game differently or have a way to play it just for fun in between the like grind.
Right. There's no build you can look up for this weird format you're doing.
Yeah.
It's like you don't get to look up a thing and be like, well, this is optimal.
Yep.
It's like, what's optimal at 430 points? I don't know. I don't know.
And why bother? Like, trying to find that out. So that was great to see because in general, the store was just like packed. There's obviously been Magic events, but you had people there for Marvel Crisis Protocol testing for events coming up. You've got people grinding the last bit of Legion, Star Wars Legion, and then you had these guys coming back and playing 40K. So that was cool to see all the tables just full. And it wasn't because there was a tournament, really. It
wasn't even like an organized thing at the store. No. It was just people were coming in and playing.
Yeah.
It's super cool to see. Like, for a while, part of it was COVID, but for a while it was really kind of crickets on that scene. And it's kind of the way we've been operating at the store is like a new release comes out, we order just enough to give everyone who is interested in it what they want at release time, but not much extra. I'm wondering if we need to like change that and be like, we need to make more things available for this kind of event where it's not like, because while it's nice that we can be like, hey, we'll special order it for you if you want it and it'll be here in a few days.
But that's just the internet.
But it's like I could do that, having it there when you're playing could be like, I could add this and it's here.
Well, and that led to something else that was happening at the same time. There were 3 guys who were sitting at a table just assembling Conquest stuff, like thousands of points of Conquest stuff. One guy bought 15 Minotaurs, of those for the new City States faction. So that was just great to see. It was like a mini miniatures convention in one spot, which is appropriate since we're 3 weeks from the Adepticon.
Oh my God, 3 weeks. I'm not going to have everything done. I'm not going to be ready.
I managed to find some free space, so this upcoming Sunday for sure, I'll get to sit in there all day like I used to and grind away, see if I can't get something where I want it.
Sweet. That's fun. Yeah, I've been trying to carve out some space like in the evenings to really sit and grind. I've actually been doing, I had this stack of sprues for the Warcry Realm of Gur terrain. And that's just been like sitting and
which there's some of it.
And then just blocking up my table. And I got all but I think I've got 1 sprue left to cut out and assemble. It's like it's a full board worth of stuff. And it's like I don't know what I want to do with it because I'm kind of torn, right? I like the idea of modularity, being able to like rearrange a board and set up a new one with the same pieces that you have. But at the same time, I've played on those boards and like leaning things up against one another and like setting things precariously so that you can have a bridge that's not attached is just, it's kind of a nightmare.
Yep.
So it's like, I kind of think maybe I'll get some actual base, sheets for these terrain pieces and actually set them up permanently, but like in smaller chunks so that they can be rearranged, but are more stable, more permanent, flocked, look a little bit better than just being the thing and putting it on a table. To actually have some customization without it being just like locked onto the table. But, I think I'll have, a couple of the little building pieces will be attached with a walkway. I'll have some of the ladders just straight up attached and not like, just leave it here. So it could be, you can put the ladder where in a different spot next game. It's like, no, I think we're just going to have permanent ladders, some permanent walkways. Maybe I'll like 3D print or make some like rope ladders that I can attach to things in other places. Or maybe I'll even insert.
Going to do one of those V rope drawbridges, whatever those are called.
Exactly. Or I could do some like magnetized ones where like I embed a magnet into the thing and like I can clip it on, stuff like that. But for the most part, I think I'm going to lock it in one configuration, and then just not worry about the modularity, because it doesn't matter that much in the long run. Like if you want to change a few things, it's like, okay, fine, but I'll just get like too much terrain and then be able to do different things with it. I don't know. I've got so much terrain that isn't even just this set that I could put on the board with it that like I'm not worried about it, because I have all the Azurite ruins. I've got the Varanite like mine tracks where they were like mining it. They
call it mine.
Yeah, so I've got a lot of stuff that I could just not worry about making it modular.
Right, it's just like when presented with the idea of magnetizing, you're like, I'll just buy another one.
I'll just buy a second one. I could magnetize sword or bow, but I'll just get one of each. I'll just buy more. It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we also got a little tidbit from the Sigmar side of in one of the articles. I think it was the Metawatch article. At the end, they said, stay tuned Saturday, 2 days from now, for the next 2 Battle Tome reveals.
Huh.
So we know Kharadron's is coming /
right.
is released.
Might be pre-released this
I
weekend.
saw... I think
because they're just getting one thing.
Yeah, I thought I saw somebody had done a review of it already. So like I think the advanced copies are already out. I'm excited to see what they change, because that's a book that's always kind of like iffy, right? Because it's a heavy shooting army with very little melee
and with flying
and be able to like retreat without penalties, kind of thing. The few things that they've showed off from the book actually are mostly just nerfs across the board for the army. But I think they're good nerfs, because it's like getting rid of the anti-fun things, right? So like before, what you'd have is an ironclad equipped with like full of guys, big weapons, artifact weapon. You charge it, you don't kill it, it repairs 3d3 wounds, and then just like flies off the table, lands outside of 9, and just blasts you.
Yep.
Like you can't pin it down. It gets to overwatch you.
There was no
twice.
Interaction with it.
Like it sucked. It sucked to play against. But now it seems like several of those things they've rolled into either like a different functionality of a rule, or they limit you more, or now it's a command ability, so you can't do it with multiple things, and if you run out of command points, you can't do it at all. Things like that, which I am all on board for that.
Yeah.
Like a big example was the Ironclad, which is the big ship, who is now up to 20 wounds, which is good, because the durability of it was never in question. Right? Like, that was never the problem. It's, it's too durable. It's like, no, 16...
No, you just couldn't interact with it
16
before
wounds
was the
wasn't a problem.
Yeah.
Now, they've taken away some of the things, and they've, while nerfing it, have also given you like other ways to play with it. So, here's an example. Before, the ship had these like bomb racks on the back of the ship.
Yep.
And they were just melee weapons that you get to use. Or like, at the end of the combat phase, drop a bomb on a unit. That unit takes D3 mortal wounds on a 4+ or something like that. And so it was just like these weird things. But now what they've done is they've turned it into a movement ability, where if you move over a unit, you get to drop bombs on them, like flying over. And you roll, I think it's at full health, you roll 10 dice. Every 4 up is a mortal wound. And it's like, okay, that's cool, because you don't have to be in combat for it.
Yep.
But I think the more important thing to think about is if you're doing a normal move or move to do your bombing run, you know what you're not doing? Flying out of the, into the sky.
Yeah. Yep.
Right? And you can't do it while you retreat. You have to be out of combat, do it, and then be out of combat.
Yeah. Which costs something to get out, right?
Right. You'd have to do a different type of movement, which is a retreat action. Well, if you retreat, you can't shoot either. And so there's like this trade-off and like incentives for staying out of combat and not just like flying and like popping around the board all the time. Sometimes maybe you will want to get close and do a normal move to be able to get your bombing run off, that kind of thing. So I think it's clever. I think it's clever little things to incentivize you to play differently and not just be, a shithead.
Yeah. Well, because like it's one thing if a unit on its own isn't quote OP, but when you don't get to interact with it as the opponent, and I just remember there was that stretch, at least in AoS 2, where the Kharadrons were just unfun.
Yeah. What was Kharadrons? It was Tzeentch.
Who were just discs on bows is all that army was.
It was a Stormcast list. It was a, it might have been 1.0, was the bow Kurnoth list. Like, They were just, the most annoying lists in the game were all these shooting armies. In a non-shooting game.
Yeah, because they were doing 40k things in a non-shooting game, and you couldn't get to the shooty units.
Right.
Because they either flew away,
or they started off the table and then landed and shot you to pieces.
Yeah, or did like the trees where they just moved around the wildwood to another part of the board. Right. The Tzeentch guys were on discs and moved 80 inches a turn. It just wasn't fun. But they've curtailed that somewhat and or put a huge premium on good shooting. Yeah. And so now it feels more fair. Hopefully that's what the Kharadrons are, but then they need to give the Kharadrons something else to do.
Make them fight a little better.
Yeah.
Make their
infantry do something.
Because the normal little Arcanauts are just not good. They're not good at either. They're not good at shooting, not good at fighting.
Yeah.
So they're kind of just wasted points. So what a lot of people did was you just take the Thunderers, the Grunstock Thunderers, the 2-wound, tough dwarves with cannon gun, double shot like handguns.
Yep.
And then you just like blow everyone off the board with shooting.
Yep.
You don't worry about any of like the objective holding guys. They also clarified a lot of how the boats garrison work, so that there's no questions. Yep. Do my guys count as running if the boat runs and they didn't? If my guys moved and the boat ran and then I embarked, do they count as running?
Right.
Do the guys inside count as holding objectives for numbers?
They clarified all that.
If I've got 15 guys in a boat, do I count as 15 models on the objective? And they clarified all of that.
And no matter what their decision is on those things, the fact that they clarified it is all that really matters.
Right.
You don't
one way or the other. I don't care which way you go.
You don't even have to like which it's like, but the fact that it's defined, and that's something I hope they move forward into anything else that has to do with garrisons or transports or whatever in either game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and the answer to that is however the boat moved, the guys count as moving that way.
Yeah.
Cool. You count as moving if the boat moved. That means you don't count as being stationary.
Right.
Even though the boat moved. Good. If the boat ran, you count as running. You don't get to shoot.
Right.
Good. No, you don't count as models on objective if you're inside the boat. You have to get out. Good.
Yeah. And you can only get out if...
exactly. Yeah, that kind of thing. And so it's like all this stuff is good. These are all like good rulings.
And so I bet they'll give them other things to do. And hopefully their sub-factions are neat. But you said they said that they're going to give us 2 more reveals. Yeah. So if they're giving us 2 more book reveals this weekend, what do we expect again to see at the preview event at Adepticon in a couple weeks?
You know what? I'm hoping.
Because that's 3 weeks from yesterday.
Optimism versus realism. So the 2 new book reveals I think are just going to be the 2 death books.
Okay.
I think that's what we're going to see. I think it's going to be Soulblight Gravelords. The Vampires are getting a new book. And I think Ossiarch Bone Reapers are getting a new one. I think Flesh Eater Courts are not going to get anything.
Really?
Yeah, not now. It might be like the last book that gets updated.
Because Night Hunts have already gotten theirs, right? Okay.
Yeah, so I think those are going to be the 2 death books. Well, then you had the Samurai Monk Vampires came out.
Yep.
There's been a lot of like weird, like vampire-ish kind of like teasers.
They're a big fan of that.
They are.
Of that faction.
And so I expect it to be Vampires getting a new update soon. I think they're going to cut some of the stuff from the book.
That's like crossover?
Kind of. No. So there's no more crossover anymore.
Or is it just some stuff that's old?
Yeah.
Maybe?
As soon as they broke up like Night Haunts and the Vampires, like everything, there's no crossover anymore.
Good.
Even the Mortarks just can't be taken in multiple books. Arkin used to be in both. He's not even in both anymore. The only crossover is Nagash. That's it.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if they got rid of things like the Corpse Cart. That's still in there for some reason.
But that's got a newer plastic model.
But that makes me think like, well, maybe the last hurrah for these models kind of thing. You know what I mean? So like,
but that got an Age of Sigmar model.
No, it didn't.
Yes, it did.
No, it did not. The Corpse Cart definitely did not.
Am I thinking the Black Coach?
Yes.
I'm thinking the Black Coach.
The Corpse Cart absolutely did not.
No,
It's
I'm thinking the Black Coach.
Old kit. But so that's something I want to talk about is those Regiments of Renown, which we got rules for, by the way. Almost nothing in those Regiments of Renown are like new integral units for armies. Kind of. Like most of them aren't. I mean, yeah, the Sylvaneth one is, because it's the winged leader with the spear and shield, and then the 5 Gossamet archers. I just think those kits aren't selling very well. So that's like, here you go. Here's a way to get some more of these guys and put them in more
At a slight discount.
At a slight discount. And part of that is like, I think what's going on with every single one of those boxes is like, we've got too many of these models in the warehouse. We need to clear them out. Come up with a new box set, including these models, to get them pushed out. Well, the one is zombies and corpse cart. That's the whole formation. That's the whole regiment. And it's like...
But they did get new zombies, right?
I don't know.
But we didn't get new corpse cart.
Right, definitely not. The old, it's definitely the old corpse cart.
Gotcha. I could see them 86 in that one.
Yeah, but the same thing with like the dwarf detachment they did is it's a unit of Iron Breakers, a unit of Iron Belchers,
Iron Breakers?
Iron Breakers and Iron Drakes. There you go. And then the Runesmith.
So old dwarves. Dispossessed dwarves is what this box is. And it's like, well, are those guys going to be continued in the new Cities book? Right.
Or is this like a last hurrah? Or these guys are I don't know, retired? And they're just going to be a mercenary unit now?
Right, it's going to be the only ones left.
And so, like, you're not allowed to bring them in the army anymore, but you can include them in any order army. You know, something like that. I would be on board for that kind of thing. I think there's a precedent for that. I mean, hell, even open it up to be a list of factions you can bring them in. You know, certain units are not order. They're not destruction. They're just mercenaries. I think the ogres man-eaters should be like that. They're just mercenaries. They're not part of the ogre army. Even when they're in the ogre army, they don't even function very well with that army.
Right.
They're mercenaries in their own book.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And so, like, you could make them be mercenaries for any faction you want to, basically. I think dwarves could be like that. Hell, I think the entire Kharadron army could be like that, essentially. But I would love it if they took, like, certain subsections of different books and be like, these guys are mercenaries. You can splash them in other books without having to be allies, you know, that kind of thing. I think it'd be cool. I think Blackwork Corsairs, the old dark elves with the pirates, could all just be mercenaries. They don't need to be part of the Cities of Sigmar book.
Right. Oh, for sure.
You know what I mean? Like,
I think the less of that's in Cities and the more they get their own stuff with their Dawnbringer shenanigans would be great.
So, but like of the 6 faction, like the little book, little formations, I kind of like all of them. They were all pretty good. They're all about 300 points.
Okay.
So the big thing with mercenaries is it doesn't allow you to bring any other allies of any kind if you bring any mercenaries. Which is like, okay.
Eats up your ally slot.
Yeah, no matter how many points it is.
Yeah.
It eats up your whole slot. It's like, okay, cool. The things that you can bring in these, you know, these formations is like, it's very useful for any of the grand alliances that you can bring them in, which is nice. So like, for example, the Cruel Boys one is 1 kill ballista and then 2 units of 3 crossbowmen from Cruel Boys. So it's not like the hobgoblins. It's not the useless stuff. It's just the shooting units.
Yeah.
7 models. But you could put those in like an Iron Jaws army, for example. And while the Mortal Wounds ability from those units are all in the Cruel Boys Allegiance abilities, this formation of mercenaries gets that ability.
Yeah.
And so, like, they still do the Mortal Wounds on 6s to hit at range. And so it's like, that's a splash of shooting you can add to an army that doesn't have any shooting.
Just melees on pigs, yeah.
Right? So, like, that's cool. I really like that. The Dispossessed one's the same way. It's you nominate an objective, you count as twice as many models while holding the objective with these units. Okay? It's a nice, solid, like, line, you know, hold the line kind of unit. But then it also splashes in 10 guys who've got guns. So maybe you have a Daughters of Cain army or something with no shooting. You splash in 300 points of dwarves into it. Yep. All of a sudden, you've got an okay amount of shooting and some decent armor to hold.
And while the daughters are flying around at speed,
right.
Those dwarves moving slower are getting the objectives behind them.
Boom.
And then shooting. Yeah.
I think it's super cool. So, like I said, most of them I like. Of the 6, I think I like all of them. The corpse cart one was actually had an interesting ability. It had an aura of -1 to your ward saves. Because like the brazier on the corpse cart is like weakening binding.
Sure.
It's like an anti-magic lodestone.
But you were saying that you think the corpse cart may not end up in an undead book.
Maybe not.
Going forward.
Yeah, maybe not. Maybe they'll cut it because it hasn't been a big part. Like it barely does anything for dead walkers in that book. Like it's really weak synergy. It's not a hero. It's not
a monster.
It's not anything. So it doesn't get anything from the book even right now. Really, I don't know. I could see them cutting some things, and that might be one of them.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with
like I said, and then traditional dwarves could be cut from cities. Yep. What was another one that was weird? Old models. I had the list up here of things.
We are pro pruning.
I am,
especially when it's old exactly. Stuff going away.
When it comes to making way for new stuff, if you have to get rid of some old stuff, so be it.
Yep.
Like it hurts if you own those models. It's like, oh well, I had them,
but
and now they're.
But it's like, didn't you get your use? You've had them for like 15, 20 years.
Exactly.
It's fine.
Yep.
You're no longer losing money on them.
Yeah. And in the picture of the that's really funny. In the picture of the corpse cart formation, it actually uses a mix of the old zombies and some of the new ones. So there's a bunch of like old zombies painted up for that formation.
And the corpse cart just may be relegated back to old world.
Maybe.
Maybe they'll give us Helm and Gorst.
The Zinch one is interesting. Oh, it's really interesting, actually. So it's a Zinch formation you can put in any Chaos army. It's a Magister, which is their normal little wizard guy.
Yep.
10 horrors. 10 pink horrors. The horrors can't use split and split again, so they have to use like the Spiteful Curse thing to do mortal wounds back to you. So they can't replicate. But their ability is, on the first battle round, they get to bring in one of the Zinch Endless spells for free. The formation includes all 3 Zinch Endless spells. So this Magister gets all 3 of them, but on the first battle round, you get to summon one in for free, like the Zinch Allegiance ability. That's kind of cool.
Do you think Disciples of Zinch players themselves would ally this?
You can't ally it in the army it's from.
That is fantastic.
Yes,
because I was like, if this is just straight up better than what they could do with 300 points,
right.
Like I could see people just then shoehorning this into an already very good army.
Well, like I said, the Zinch army already has that ability built into them.
Yeah.
Because they don't have any faction terrain. This is their faction terrain. You get to summon at the beginning of the game like a Zinch Endless spell for free, without it being cast, without it being unbound. And then it can't be dispelled that first turn. So it's like, kind of cool.
But this doesn't let them double dip.
Correct.
In that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it specifically says you can't use them in the army that they're from. If your army has, for example, this one, if your army has a Chaos General but is not a Slaves of Darkness army, you can bring these 3 beasts from Slaves of Darkness, which is the Rock Thrower, Ogroid, the Myrmidon, Spear and Shield, and then the Sphinx, the big cat.
Yeah.
You can bring those 3 monsters as like a sub-battalion in any non-Slaves of Darkness army. Kind of cool. Very middling benefit.
Yeah, they're not. None of those are great units, but they're also not expensive. With the Myrmidon maybe being the most expensive, because the Formoroid Crusher and the Sphinx are
they're like 100 points.
Yeah, they're pretty cheap.
So like I think you still end up clocking in what the formation
under 400
costs.
Probably.
Yeah, because I think he's 145 and they're each 100, so it should be 345, and I think it's only 310 points. So you save a little bit, which is kind of cool. The benefits for it are very mediocre. So it's this once per phase, you can issue the all-out attack or all-out defense command to the Formoroid Crusher or the Mind Stealer without command point being spent.
Mm.
Every phase, you can do one or the other to either of them, and then at the end of the charge phase, you can pick either the Crusher or the Sphinx. You target an enemy monster, and on a 3-up, both that model and the monster have to strike last. So it's like you gang up on a monster using one of the little monsters in this formation. So it's like, it's interesting things.
Is it one that he has to be in melee with?
Yeah, because it's within 3 inches.
I was like, because if you could have that Formoroid Crusher just standing back and like pick a monster and go, he fights last.
At the end of the charge phase, and then within 3 inches, and then on a 3+.
Gotcha.
So it's still cool, like.
Yeah.
I like them all. They're all just like fine.
It's weird is like when we are always thinking of things that could be added or updated in the game, we never think of totally new things happening like this.
Right.
And so even though it's technically one of those things that the players didn't ask for, it's like, but it's totally cool
Mm-hmm.
And it's really nothing extra. They didn't make new models for it.
Right.
You don't have to buy a new book for it.
They just rebox some existing models, and they said you don't even need to buy the box. If you have the models, you can already do it.
Yeah.
Here are the rules.
Yeah, and if you don't, you're probably getting a couple % off.
Yeah.
Of like the kits individually.
Yeah. So look at the price here. The Arch Revenant and the 5 Gossamer Archers, they're so expensive, is $310 for those 6 models. But the cool thing is that instead of doing their retreat thing like they normally do, after they shoot and they do their retreat, they just like displace themselves and land somewhere else.
And then what are they charging dollar-wise for these?
That we don't know yet. I don't think they gave the box prices yet. They just they're coming out soon. Here are the rules for them.
I have to imagine they're going to discount them a bit, right?
They have to.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think this is stock clearance. I think it's what they're trying to do.
Yeah, we printed so many of these.
Yeah, or we've got so many of these just sitting around. Let's whip some new box sets together and move these.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess some of those could be neat ways to splash something if you don't want to go full hog into an army. Like, I've gotten rid of most of my Disciples of Tzeentch stuff, but buying that Tzeentch unit, or that Tzeentch mercenary unit for my Nurgle or my slaves, or if they can do it.
Yeah, absolutely could.
That could totally be a useful addition to get that kind of magic-y stuff built in. Yeah, not bad. Do Skaven have one?
No. Why do you even ask? Because what would a Skaven one be? Clan Rats, it would be Storm Vermin, or Storm Fiends.
Probably a Doom Wheel or something.
But that'd be too much. If it was like, here's a Grey Seer, 3 Storm Fiends, that's 500 points right there. You know, that's too much.
Or they go the other way, and it's like, here's 60 Clan Rats.
Here's 40 Clan Rat, or 40 Skaven Clan Rats, and what hero? Called a Claw Lord, 145 points an hour.
Yeah.
It'd be it'd still be 320 points or so, but still, point remains. Yeah, so that was kind of cool. I really like those. Man, I wish I could play more.
Yeah,
because it's like I put together so much of it and paint so much of it. It's like I don't have enough chances to actually play at this point.
Yeah,
which is fine. I am getting my army finished for the Adepticon tournament. A buddy of mine actually got a spot, so we're both playing in that now.
That's cool. Which would be cool because you could end up playing against each other. Yep. You can end up on the same team one round.
I don't want to play against him again. This plays funny wolf list. I don't want to fight.
He'll come right after you.
I actually might use some of this Gur terrain.
Are you switching to Beast? Or you still going with the Slavs?
I'm gonna do slaves. It's a fluffy tournament.
1,000 points each
1,000
player.
Points. It's fluffy. It's supposed to have a story behind your warband, and so in my mind, it's not an optimal army, and it shouldn't be an optimal army.
Correct. So this type of events
some people will go that route.
They will.
There's no doubt about that. Some people will go optimal. I'm not going to be one of them, because if I was going to go optimal, it would just be 2 units of 5 chosen, a Chaos Lord on foot, a Chaos Manticore with a Sorcerer probably.
Yep.
And then 2 units of the Corvus Cabal would be my whole army.
Or you would have done Beasts.
Yeah, exactly.
But yes.
But I'm not going that route. That's not the whole point. The whole point is I'm gonna do an army that I've painted up nice and have a story behind them and try to make a dude turn to a demon prince. That's my whole goal. I just want someone to
one time. Yeah. That should be fun.
But I might use some of the Gur terrain to make a display board even. Really quick.
Oh, so I've noticed around the Gram is we've got some people who are getting ready for Adepticon, or the one in April, the Warhammer Fest in April. So for the European folks, and they're starting to post either their display boards if they're going to play, or they're starting to post their painting competition figures, and it's some pretty impressive stuff. I guess mixed feeling, because I'm a little from the old school. And so seeing people's stuff before the event it can be motivating, but it can also be discouraging.
I mean, as long as the judges don't see it, I guess
know who it is.
Because I feel like part of the competition is the shock and awe aspect.
Yep.
Where you show up with an amazing piece that no one's seen before, and they're blown away. Judges included. Whereas if you've seen the piece already, and then you see it in person, it's like, oh, I've already gotten to see this. And
some of the painters who are more renowned don't show some of their big pieces, or they only give you bits of the progress.
Right.
And that's fine. But when you see these folks do the completely finished one, and they're in it, I can see what you're saying, because some of these judges are fans and follow some of these. They follow the hobby, and they might see it. They then know who it is, and then that person shows up with it, and they're like, "Oh, I've watched this, and hey, that's that guy's thing from the thing," and that can impact it. You also get the fans of that particular artist, hobbyist, who recognize it, and so they give it extra praise in their mind or even vocally, and that can affect how it's viewed, how it's perceived. At the same time, and that can be discouraging for anyone who maybe is planning to enter, but then they look at that and like, oh, I'm going up against that. Shoot. It can also be motivating. You can also see what people are doing, and that inspires you to another thing. Right. But then you're like me and you look and you've got 3 weeks and you're like, oh, I can't start another thing. Like, unless I found a way to give 6 hours every day for the next 3 weeks, there's no way I could start another thing.
Even that might not be enough time.
Yeah. And I get a little bit of that syndrome right now. I keep seeing stuff that makes me want to paint a new thing. But then, that time 4 months ago that we thought was plenty of time is now here.
Gone. It's gone, yeah.
Yeah.
It's frustrating. I saw something interesting, too. The guy who won the Slayer sword
at our
Adepticon, the skink.
Yep.
I saw that guy post on the gram that GW actually snatched him up for the heavy metal painting team.
Neat.
He's now apparently working for heavy metal.
That's fantastic.
Which is like, that's interesting. That's interesting to me, right? Because it's like, I hadn't thought about that before. Is a painting competition just an audition for a job? You know what I mean? Like,
nowadays it can be.
In general, though, like, think about that. Like, what if you showed up to Conquest or to Resin Beast and you did monster, creature cast, and you're like, your submission was good. They're like, hey, your submission was really good. Would you consider doing commission painting for us?
Right.
Like, would you? I don't know. It's interesting. It's like, I know our friend Kaylee has landed some, at least, connections through going to conventions and talking to people at the booths, but I don't know if she's directly gotten any jobs, like offers from her, like, submissions necessarily.
Right. I mean, she did work for a studio for a while. On her own, I think she just does one-off things right now. She does get a lot of use our stuff on your stream type deals, sponsorships. But you're right. I don't know if she's just gotten a straight up like, hey, be our studio.
Right. We liked your submission. Would you consider painting for us? Like, I don't know. It's interesting. But maybe get, start wondering too, is that the goal? Is that the goal? In your painting journey, is the ultimate goal to be like, I landed a job as a painter for a studio, like a prestigious one?
Yeah, I don't know.
I guess some people, that's the, the path you're trying to get into, right?
And maybe it depends on where you are. Because there are some people who maybe have enough views or whatever through their painting, their Patreon, their social media, whatever, that they don't need something like that because they get to manage their own schedule now, sort of. There could be other people who work a full-time job aside from their hobby, and going to paint for studio maybe wouldn't be as good of a paying job. Maybe for someone that's gangbusters, like, oh, I get to go, but that could also depend. Like, if you're a part of the heavy metal team, I guess that depends on what they're paying you per project or
what's the timetable. We kind of know the standard already of what you're expected to paint to.
Yeah. And we got an insight into some of what their studio's like when Peachy talked about, well, they had like their mass line painters, and then they had the heavy metal team, which did the stuff that went on box art and had the pictures in the codex, models that were in the forefront as opposed to the background kind of thing. And maybe those are totally different pay styles. Maybe the heavy metal guys are contract. Because, I mean, what if you don't live over there?
Right, exactly. Are they going to send you something? You have to, like, cut it out, clip it, clean it, paint it, send it back in 2 weeks?
Right.
And then to that standard of box art, and then hope it makes it?
Well, and then it's for stuff that, from what I recall researching, that stuff has to be done painted, like, 18 months prior to when it's released.
Wow.
Because then they kind of go away and do all the photography and setup with them, and then they go about writing all the rules and
printing the actual cardboard and stuff, like, and getting the photos ready.
So you're gonna, as a heavy metal guy, you're gonna be seeing stuff that isn't out yet. Which, if he is working for the heavy metal team, that does mean he can only enter the open category.
That's true.
At Golden Demons.
So we don't have to worry about competing against him ever again.
Nope. and they've made it clear that the open category is the only one that people who work for them can enter, and the winner of that category can't get the sword. So, like, it's neat that they give them their own, because we had some like questions about last year.
Why
we saw,
is that in that?
Why is Darren Latham's single mini not in single mini? It's like, he works for heavy metal.
He works for heavy metal again. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so he could only do it in that one category. Yeah, I don't know. I think some artists probably prefer the freedom of not being bound to a studio. For others, it might be they're just why not? They might decide, let's see what this is like. I mean, the heavy metal standard, like as far as box art goes, is pretty high.
Yeah.
Because even though it's not as artistic as it is technical, their box art stuff is always super clean, basically flawless in its execution. And they have been getting a little bit more in terms of the weathering or something like that on there, while still keeping their very GW clean line edge stuff. But you don't see uneven edges. You don't see missed blends. You don't see stuff exposed or not painted. You don't see overexposure to one area over another. So that is a high standard. I have to imagine they get hopefully decent timetables, or they send a heavy metal painter, hey, here's these 5 characters for this army coming out. Just do those. I don't know. Be interested to find out, I guess.
Anyway, I just thought that was an interesting thing that I had seen. That's all.
You know, and it makes sense because his skink was very GW looking.
Yeah.
Which was even, I think, Trovariant's comment on it. It was like, yeah, it was amazing looking, but very GW in its style. So they were probably like, hey.
But yeah, I wonder how often that happens. Because it's like, that was almost a year ago.
Yeah.
And the announcement was like just now. I'll be like, oh, I'm joining their team.
Which means he immediately can't enter in this upcoming one?
Yeah, I think
so. Or he can only go open?
Yeah, I think so. But that's interesting because it's like, did it take 10 months to actually work out logistics of...
Maybe.
That's interesting.
And maybe he just had to be quiet about it for a while.
Could be. It's just an interesting thing.
It is.
Just noticing,
Yeah, that is. I expect competition to be pretty stiff. I think we get some leeway in North America because there's one in Europe in April, a month later, and I think there's a lot of people who aren't going to do both. That's probably pretty expensive. I don't know. We'll see. Kind of makes it like a East versus West thing once they do happen back to back.
Yeah.
Because we'll get the North American one, and then a month later we get the...
Was there like a combined one later in the year? Because that would be super cool if it was like a Masters Golden Demon kind of thing.
You know, I wonder if they're going to
call it a Greater Demon.
Yeah, great.
Whatever.
That'd be hilarious. Well, it makes me wonder, because now if you're going to have them both this early in the year, you figure maybe there's something planned later.
Right? It's around September sometime.
Hey, we're going to take 4 category winners from this one and 4 category winners from this one, and then have them do another one,
or at least offer.
Yeah.
Would you like to submit something for here's an invitation to our Masters, call our Exalted Golden Demon. Later this year, would you want to submit something for it and then be in that category where it's invite only? 4, maybe not 4. Yeah, maybe like 4 entries per category kind of thing.
Because I mean, the Ever Chosen was a little bit of it, but it was also very fan voted, sort of. So yeah, I don't know. I figure with two Golden Demons this early in the year, they gotta have something lined up for the end of the year. But maybe I don't know. I haven't looked that far out in their schedule.
Yeah.
Unless they're just focusing on the tournaments, because the U.S. Open ones are all in the summer and.
Yeah, but that bringing it back to your original question, I think Soulblight Gravelords and Ossiarch Bone Reapers are going to be getting books.
But Flesh Eater Courts, nothing.
Which then what we might see at Adepticon, because that was the original question.
That was like 35 minutes ago. We got there.
Optimism versus realism.
Yes. And we have this discussion a lot.
We have this a lot, because it's like what I hope to see versus what I think we're actually going to see.
We should name this segment somehow.
I know we should. How wrong can they be?
Yep.
So my optimistic is we're going to see more actual models painted. More of, and then actual models, and then painted ones of the new Cities of Sigmar book, Dawnbringer Crusade. I think that's what I keep calling it Dawnbringer Crusade, and I hope that's what it is. Because the more I think about it...
Isn't that what they've called it in articles, though?
I think... I don't remember. It's Dawn something.
I think it's Dawnbringer Crusade.
Because I'm pretty sure the Dawnbringer something was a sub-faction from Elder Scrolls V Skyrim.
Oh.
It was like the vampire and
I thought it was called
hunters.
Dawnbringer Crusade.
Okay. I think that was the Dawnbringers. I don't know. I think it's Dawnbringer Crusade. Leave it at that. It was what we're calling it. If it's not what they're called...
And if we're wrong, we're gonna act like we never called it that. Right.
We're gonna contact Games Workshop and be like, no. You need to change the name of this book.
Did you not listen to our podcast?
It is Dawnbringer Crusade.
Yeah.
It's what we've been calling it. Everyone calls it that now because we've been calling it that. You need to change it.
Yep.
But my optimistic guess is that. I want to see the actual models and what they look like.
And not just bits, not just artwork,
not just like,
yeah.
And not even just like 3D models of bits.
Right.
Like, that's all we've really seen, and we haven't heard from them about that in a while.
Yeah.
It has been a while since the last, like, here's what armor looks like for the Dawnbreaker Crusade.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a bit. I wonder if they're saving it up for 6 months, and then bam.
Yeah.
Here's the release for them. My more realistic guess is we're just going to see a couple more new things for Seraphon.
More even. Okay.
Yeah, I think they're getting a lot.
So far, it already seems like quite a bit.
So Seraphon have already gotten sort of a pseudo replacement for the Cold One Riders.
Yep.
Which we don't know if Cold One Riders are still going to have rules or if they're going to get an updated kit themselves. Because the fact that they're updating the Saurus Warriors,
which they are, yep.
And then clearly they're going to have 2 weapon options, hand weapons and spears with shields, means that either they need to update the Cold Ones to have the same matching aesthetic to the Warriors, because it's Warriors on foot, Warriors on mount.
Yep. They'll
need to update those or cut them. That's the 2 options.
But they at the very least showed us cavalry.
Right.
Which are skinks on a dinosaur.
Riders.
Yeah.
The chicken dinosaur.
Yeah.
The painted mask chicken dinosaur.
Yeah.
Which is a super cool model.
Yeah.
Very weird, but I love it. The more I've looked at it, the more I've liked it. So we have that. We have a new Slan, which replaces this fat turd.
Yeah. Which for anyone who'd ever assembled it, it was a 4-pound
solid brick of resin.
Just like one of those, like an ocean sinker that you would use for fishing. And it just sat on a tiny flying stand.
Yeah.
And it was metal before it was that.
Yeah. So, I mean, it is a small, outdated model, and they're finally kicking it and giving it a new one. It's not going to be as big as Croak, I don't think.
No, Croak's got to be special, yeah.
I mean, if you took away all of Croak's, like, floating orrery, and you gave him, like, the living kind of unadorned headdress kind of face, like, you could have kit-bashed your own.
Right. I'm sure people have.
But that's coming. Then we know there is a new Salamander.
With
handlers coming.
Awesome.
Which we don't know yet if it makes another half of that kit. So we
don't know.
It could be a Razor. It could be a new type of like medium monster. We don't know. The skink kits themselves, the skink cohorts look okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we probably won't get new skinks. Maybe some kind of new bigger dinosaur. Because if you look at the Engine of the Gods or the Stegodon, which it's weird we've gone over that, they call it a Stegodon,
mm-hmm.
or the what's the other one? The Bastillodon. It's, in terms of this game's scale, those are small monsters. They're kind of little. Like they're on like chariot bases, but like they're only like 3 inches long. They're little monsters. The Carnosaur is bigger, but not that much bigger. I wonder if we're going to get some kind of a new centerpiece sort of monster that fits kind of in the large monster category. Something akin to like the turtle for Idneth Deepkin or something like that, where it's just slightly larger. I still want, maybe not the size exactly, but I want a Dreadsaurian type thing, an official plastic big dinosaur. You know what I mean? Something that it's in that 500 point range. Because a Carnosaur right now is only like 240 points. Like it's not a big monster.
But they could change that by jacking up his rules. But I don't suspect they will.
But it would be super weird if they jack up his rules and make him way better. But he's still so little. You know what I mean? Like it's weird if he was like suddenly a 24 wound monster, but he's the size of a Magmadroth. That's only 12. You know what I mean? That's another thing.
Yeah. But maybe they will. But it also could be.
And new Croxagors. That's what I want to see.
That
is my number one desire, is new Croxagors.
That would be. See, I was thinking like they might lean more towards that, if only because while the Bastillodon and Stegodon and Carnosaur aren't enormous dinosaurs,
mm-hmm.
their plastic kits were okay. They're late-ish fantasy,
mm-hmm.
and I could live with them if you took something as old and as crummy as those Croxagors,
mm-hmm.
and you give us a plastic version of them.
Because they were kind of like fish-headed gator men, is what the models kind of look like.
Yep.
The ones from Total War nailed the aesthetic of a
big
Croxagor.
mutant humanoid Crox.
But I hope that they scale it up a little bit for it being a big elite heavy-hitting monster infantry.
Yeah, you need to go Kharadron. You need to go.
I want it bigger. I want it like a Storm Fiend size.
That's what I was gonna say next. But you've got a precedent for a monstrous infantry.
Yeah.
Unit of 3 to 6 or whatever.
Whatever.
And, you make a box of 3 of them that makes variants.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, make them big, make them chunky, make them like a 5 or 6 wound thing.
Yep.
Make them bigger than they are and more tanky than they are now.
No more skinny snake body.
Right, exactly.
Right.
So a bunch of little Trogdors.
Yep.
That's my number one wish for that army. Because if they do that, I will buy them all.
So you think at Adepticon we'll see more lizards, more Seraphim?
I think that's where they're going to go.
Okay.
Because it's safer. It's easier.
It is.
They've already shown us some.
Which they will waste some time in a video showing what they've shown
Basically,
us.
the first half they've shown us already. We know more is coming.
Yep.
They're going to show us the second half. I think that's what they're going to show us.
And it will leak undoubtedly the day before, so that they say,
as it does.
Well, sorry, everyone's seen this.
Yeah. And then we know that there's a new character on foot for Seraphim already.
Yeah.
So
about time.
Yeah.
And we talked about this a couple weeks ago, but I expect some big summertime 40K reveal.
Yeah. Well, I think it's going to be the Lion.
Which would be spectacular.
Because we've theorized where the story's going a little bit. And I think Lionel Johnson is going to be coming back for the Dark Angels. I think that's what we're going to see for that. I think we're going to see the next box set for Warcry, which will be the 4th one to complete the Gur campaign and complete your table with terrain.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to see that. We're going to see another warband for Underworlds.
Always.
Because there's another one coming out. There's another Daughters of Cain one coming out. The 3rd or 4th one for them. Another one's coming. It's the 3rd.
You know what I don't think we'll see? I don't know if we'll get the 10th Ed announcement. They might save that for the UK Warhammer Fest in April.
Yeah.
Because that'll be at their...
It'd be too many big things.
Yeah, that'll be at their
stacked.
headquarters, and they'll save it for home, for their home base.
Yeah, I think 10th Ed's going to be... I don't know.
If they even call it that.
Could be 4 months away.
Yeah.
Could be midsummer when we get it. But I think you're right. I think they're going to reveal the announcement at their thing.
Like, they might show us the Primarch, but they might save...
Well, because like I said, we still haven't seen the conclusion of the campaign.
Right.
It'd be weird if it was like, hey, 10th edition, and then later on they're like, here's the 4th installment of the ongoing campaign. Like, that seems the wrong order.
Yeah.
We're going to get the 4th installment.
Yep.
And then...
And that's the one that's still a question mark, right?
Right, because we know the next one coming up is it Azrael?
Well...
One of the Dark Angels characters, Primarist. I think
that's Azrael.
Azrael, the Grandmaster.
Yep.
Versus the Arcaphane character.
Vashtor, yeah.
That we've seen in the story thus far.
And parts 1, 2, and 3 of that campaign were Abaddon,
Chaos.
Vashtor, and Angron.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the 4th one's the question mark.
Mm-hmm. I think that's going to be the conclusion. Is going to be the return of the Lion.
Of the Lion. Of Leo.
The second Loyalist Primarch making his return. That's what I think we're going to see. And then after that wraps up, that campaign, that'll be like period 10th edition now.
Yeah.
So I think we're gonna hear the reveal for that later.
I wouldn't be surprised at that.
We did see a Horus Heresy thing too to throw on there today. Pistols and chainswords.
Whoa!
For your Mark 10 or for your Mark 6 Marines, so you can make assault Marines now.
They call them something else though in Horus Heresy.
Oh, I don't think so. The Corvus pattern.
It was
all the beakies.
Yeah, but the
what they call the assault Marine. Yeah. Yeah. It's the same that they called the double pistol guys. I thought they called them.
I don't remember what they're called.
I don't remember.
Not destroyers, not punishers, not.
I did also see that the Legion super heavies on Forge World are no longer available.
Despoiler Squad.
Despoiler Squad. There you go.
We got there.
But like the Falchion and the other one,
Fellblade
are no longer available. Not even like temporarily out of stock. Just no longer available. I think
that'll come in plastic.
That's a hint that we're going to get that in plastic.
And again, while we don't care much about the heresy stuff, I do think it's long overdue that like Forge World just shouldn't have been making vehicles because resin with a bunch of geometric shapes was awful.
I mean, like in the shipping process, when it's inside of the plane or the boat or whatever, and it gets hot, the parts warp on the way.
And they just send them in a plastic bag in a white box, and those parts have thicker resin feeds than tree branches, and you have to deal with that. And so it's like, yes, them just making these vehicles of plastic probably was very low effort for them. Mm-hmm. They just took a scan of the original.
I don't think they needed to change anything. It's just the same vehicle.
They did a scan, let their computer cut it up into pieces, added bits, instead of making people buy 18 different gun variants, and then it's like, well, we'll just throw them all in the box. Yeah. Here you go.
So, but I still maintain that we're going to see scaling up in terms of vehicles over and over again until we finally get to the Stormbird. or the Thunderhawk, whatever. I
Right.
think we're gonna get a plastic Thunderhawk eventually, but that'll be like the end of the Horus Heresy like releases,
which would
schedule.
fulfill a 20-year rumor.
Mm-hmm. I did think it was really funny when they released that plastic Thunderhawk, but it was for Epic, Titanicus or Aeronautica.
Aeronautica, that's it.
So it was like, that was funny.
Yeah.
That was like a year ago. That was like an April Fool's thing, I think they did. And they're like, just kidding, it's real. But it's this big.
I remember when they used to do those little skit videos where it would be like in the GW basement.
Yep.
And it was like in the background, they did one that was plastic Angron, and then they did one that was plastic Thunderhawk. Yeah. Which that's just a riot because it's been on the internet forever. Mm-hmm. We got Angron.
Really, really leaned into it. It's going to happen eventually. It's just a matter of when.
Yep.
We know it's going to happen.
They got to see what the interest is in it.
Yep.
But fulfilling these Horus Heresy ones, it's so easy because all of the vehicles and all the infantry work for all of the armies. Mm-hmm. That's kind of like cheating. They don't have that with the other systems, you know? Yeah. So do you think Heresy will eat up rumor space at Adepticon?
A reveal space?
Maybe it's for that.
I'm sure it will.
Or it'll be the next Primarch
Yeah, it could be like they did Horus Ascended. Maybe they'll show another one.
I don't think they'll do any of the Demon Princes, though, because we have them in plastic.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to be... It'll be an alternate of one of the Primarchs. It'll be like, on his last leg, Sanguinius. It'd be something like that. Where that
at the Eternity Gate, kind of.
Exactly, where that like finishes off the Emperor diorama.
Right.
Of Horus Ascended walking slowly up against beaten up Sanguinius. Mm-hmm. And then eventually they'll release a big resin plinth for them all to go in. And then in the back there, they'll release the Emperor model to go in with it. And you can create the diorama of that famous scene.
Right.
It'll be something like that is what they're going to do.
Which was it Adrian Wood? I don't remember the name. But who did an artwork piece and then it inspired a model, which is now in their little Warhammer World
so
Museum.
I remember that. I know the photo where it's like angry Horus, come at me broing, and then it's like Sanguinius dead on the steps.
Yep.
And the Emperor's getting ready to fight him.
There was a really incredible artwork that depicted it almost like stained glass-ish.
Oh, that's cool.
And then that guy did that model for way back in the 90s, I think, where, he just had Horus in a little Terminator suit with claws and little Emperor in white Terminator suit and little Sanguinius in human form. But it was still for the time. It was given the models and supplies you had, it was remarkable. And I guess now at Warhammer World, they have that piece in their museum, and then they show the artwork that it was kind of inspired by. But
I think that's what we're going to see.
I think so,
those
too.
kinds of things. It's not going to be re-release a Primarch. It's going to be here's an alternate from a different point in the story of one of them. It'll be, it'll never happen, but it'll be, Istvan, Shattered Legions era of Corvus when he lost his jump pack and he's just running around with a heavy bolter. Because there's literally rules for him.
A Raven Guard with a heavy bolter.
The Primarch is running around. I think he was wielding the heavy bolter like a pistol.
Probably.
Kind of running around doing that. But he was all busted up. He couldn't get off the planet because his Raven's wings were destroyed, and he was just fighting, just pistoling people with a heavy bolter.
And a pistol made out of a heavy bolter.
Yeah. And so that was, but that kind of thing. It's just a different point in the story. That's what we'll see, I think.
Probably. Because there's not much more for that game, really.
Yeah. Because it's I was trying to think of other important characters that they haven't made a model for, and it's most of the first captains or whatever's have all been released. All got models. Yep. I was even going to say what about the first demon that possessed a marine? And it's no, they had a Seamus, the Seamus model.
Yep. Samus,
whatever. Seamus.
Yeah.
They had the demon of the Ruinstorm. He was just a big dog.
Yep.
It was weird. But they had that. So.
And the other one with a bunch of
the Ruinstorm demons.
Yeah.
The undivided ones, which are super cool. I think they're still available. I kind of want to get those models because they are still really cool.
Might want to get them before they're not anymore.
I know. I would love to see them do some resculpting and re-releasing akin to Horus with some of those early Primarchs. I still would love to see it. New Ferris.
I'd be okay if they did it with Constantine Valdor because his model looks so stupid.
That would be sweet.
And because his description and every artwork that's depicted him.
That's a pretty new model.
I know. But he is so minimalist. And then they released that model where he has feathers and capes and furs and bling galore. And it looks awful.
He's carrying an entire caravan's worth of goods across down the Silk Road.
the Custodes and GW in general are known for big, ridiculous weapons. His is actually too ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, man, he's one I wish they would go more minimalist. Have him in the last days when he's literally hunting around the palace for traders that are in the basement.
He's just in his underwear with a knife.
Yep.
Just like tiptoeing around.
And he goes full Woodhouse on him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I also would really like to see a new, let's see, who do I want the most? The old models.
They already made the Null lady.
Yeah. I mean, Ferris, like I said, would be cool to have a new model of him, but he's so dead that it doesn't matter.
Yeah. He doesn't make another appearance.
Yeah, so don't worry about him.
Yeah. They could make a version that's headless and have him on a horse.
You can already do that.
Oh, okay.
You just leave the head off.
Yeah,
just clip it off.
Have him just swinging.
That would be a really good diorama. Is if you change that, the duel between him and Fulgrim to be like their same poses, and his still doing the big swing, but it's got like that goopy, attached but off of his body, like just after it happens, sort of for a moment. Big arc of blood from the demon sword. You know, that'd be nice.
And you'd have to pose Fulgrim to look like he just exactly. The way he's holding the sword is the follow through.
Right. Yeah. I would love to see a new Lorgar. Is what I would like to see.
That's an old one.
Lorgar is my chaos Primarch of choice. I mean, besides maybe like Alfarius. Alfarius is really cool too. But he is the bad guy. He really loves it. Being a bad guy.
Yep.
You know, like he wrote the demon summoning books.
And none of the other ones, even the other traders like him.
Yeah. And so like I'd love to see him in a better model, because his model,
it was one of the early ones.
It's rough.
It was one of those,
it's mostly the head. His head is so, for the time it was cool, but it's so poorly cast. Like it's poorly sculpted, not cast. Poorly sculpted now. It's just his head is so like skinny and tall and gaunt, because they had to like carve in the detail of his like cheek lines. That it's
and they probably have a better process for that now,
rough.
even in resin.
Yeah,
because we even saw that with the new Horus, how much better he looks from the original.
Plastic. It looks so good.
Yeah, and you have to think, like, they can't do another Angron because there's no part in the story anymore where Angron's not a demon, and we have that model now.
Right.
And but Lorgar, he wasn't a demon yet.
No.
And that's an old one. They could stand to give that one a polish. Yeah, I think the old Gilliman's pretty old, but he didn't make it home in time.
Yeah, we don't really see him. Yeah, we don't see him in the story again.
Nope. He's always just out of reach. He's not quite home
and I
yet.
feel like his model is fine.
It's all right. Yep.
You know, like it captures him.
And again, I feel like they take a risk if they're like, well, we have a plastic one in 40K, and while that's a different aesthetic, like, we can't make one that now has to compete with that.
Okay, so like with those constraints, then I feel like they are limited even further in who they can release.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If they're going to do a new Primarch once again, who are they able to do it with? Well, it can have received a Demon Primarch model in 40K,
right.
So those three are out. They're ruled out. No more Mortarion. They have Mortarion. New Mortarion, Demon version.
We have Magnus.
You can't do it. So you can't do those three. You've done your second version of Horus, and then he dies afterwards. So there's no other Horus you can do. Several of the characters are actually dead already in the story, so you don't get new Ferris. You don't get a new Night Haunter, Conrad. You don't get a new one of him. And then if we're talking about still 30K era character series,
allegedly Alfarius is dead at that point in the story.
But like, who else needs a new model? That's the thing. It's like you also have to consider that. I think pretty much Lorgar is the only candidate.
Lorgar, and you made a good point for the diorama plus Eternity Gate Sanguinius.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
There's a pretty cool art piece where he's like hunched over and his wings are like dangly.
That's become like, that was in one of the that was the Echoes of Eternity.
Right. That's right.
Which was one of the more recent books, but it's now become iconic in its imagery.
On that, the book, I remember it on the cover.
Because he took on the world pretty much by himself.
And so like, I'd like that, the idea of that, you know, and then being in a model form of that. That'd be cool. But like, Fulgrim doesn't need a new model because he becomes Demon Prince. He becomes a demon. He's already a demon by this point. And so like, we'll just
Vulcan hung out in the basement.
We'll wait for him to become a Demon Prince in 40K and get a model there. You don't need to do that for 30K. So, unless you're going to plan on doing like human character series of like humans at the time.
Yeah, because
you could do Malcador.
Because they did Fabricator General guy or Archmagos guy. But yeah, short of doing the Emperor and Malcador,
There's like not many other characters that you'd like.
Not any big ones. You have fleet commanders. I mean, you're going to make them.
Oh, they're not important.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, yeah, it's a very few. It's a very slim list. You wouldn't want to do another Proto-Rabo either, because I feel like Proto-Rabo is going to still look the same until he eventually ascends.
Yep.
And then you don't want to spoil that with a 30K character series model.
No, and you could bring him back at 40K down the road.
Exactly.
And be awesome.
And be the size of a Telemond.
Yeah.
Dreadnought.
Yeah.
Just be a big walking fortress. That'd be really cool. And then, like I said, one of them's dead. One of them becomes Knight Rider. Am I missing somebody? Chaos? I think that's it, right? There's the 2 undivided.
Yep.
There's, 2 that die, and you got 1 for each god.
Yeah.
I'm still missing 1.
No, because Horus
2
Conrad
died.
died.
9. Yeah. No, it's only 8, though.
Alfarius dead.
Alfarius dies, too. That's right.
Ish.
Yeah. Okay.
Could be dead, maybe.
Fair enough. So no more chaos, then.
Yeah.
The only thing you can get to do is maybe get another Jagadai, but this time on a bike.
Yeah, because that was the last one. That's a newer one.
Yeah, but you could still do an alternate form.
Yeah.
You can give him his bike.
Well, and he was also, at this stage in the Siege of Terra, was mortally wounded in his fight with Mortarion. So he might look different, even. Okay. He was, like, the only reason when, I can't remember her name. She's a human character who's in, like, all of it. But when she shows up, she only recognized who it was because of some adornments of the armor and his size. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it was like, what is that? But he survived.
Is that where, what's his name, blamped back to the warp and, like, exploded him?
Yeah. Yeah, he exploded Mortarion.
Yeah, that's right.
Which bamped him back to the warp, yeah. Mm-hmm. And then he himself was almost killed. Malkador and some madman who's a surgeon. I can't remember his name either. He's an important character, but fixed him.
You know who I want to see them make a character series model for?
Don't say it. Don't say it. John
Grammaticus.
Grammaticus.
That's what I want to say.
God, I hate that character.
John Grammaticus.
Jeez.
I still really, really like our idea that John Grammaticus is the Emperor.
Yep.
I love the idea that, like, we've been seeing him attending all of these things. I mean, similar to like Doctor Who. I know this is a bad reference for you because you haven't watched Doctor Who, but...
Correct.
There are times in the Doctor Who stories where he visits characters that he knows from later in his life.
Right.
But doesn't know them yet. But they know who he is. And they're like, oh, this is my first time meeting you in your timeline.
Right.
Like that kind of thing. So it could be some of that with John Grammaticus. There's a point in one of the stories where John Grammaticus goes and sees the Emperor doing something.
Right.
Way back.
Yep.
And so it's like, well, that's just John Grammaticus in another, however many hundreds of years before he's done it. It's like Harry Potter hiding around the rocks, watching himself, Patronus for the first time. It's that kind of shit. Where it's like he doesn't realize it's him until he's in that moment. It's like, oh wait, that was me, but then I forgot I was here. Earlier in my life because it doesn't happen yet. Like it's just and
everywhere stuff. John Grammaticus shows up, he's never doing anything to progress the story, but he's always just come from somewhere important. Everybody knows he's on his way to do something important, and everybody knows he's whatever. And he always refers to himself when they give you an insight into his mind as like he's a walking nuke when it comes to his abilities. But he never contributes. Mm-hmm. He never moves anything forward.
So like the actual Emperor.
Yes, they just keep cutting to chapters of him. Now in this latest one that I've been trying to move slow because I know the next one's not going to be out for a minute. He's not even in it.
Okay.
In this one so far.
Okay. Yet.
Because it's been such a like sanguineous World Eaters and Blood Angels really book. So yeah, we haven't seen any of the Grammaticus.
But that could also be why that the Emperor is so aloof about everything happening because it's like he remembers seeing it when he was younger.
Yep.
Like he knows how that plays out already.
Saw it outside of time. Yep.
So that kind of thing.
John Grammaticus is the Emperor.
It'd be really funny because wasn't it something weird too where like what's her name knew him too? The Erda knew John somehow.
Yep.
It's like.
Erda, perpetual, but also the Amazon because she was like 7 feet tall.
Right. So it's like there's weird like they had a relationship of some kind too.
And it's weird. Everybody has a history with John.
Yeah.
Like hates him, but then always tolerates him.
So weird.
Because I can't think. And he's never that interesting when I read about him. But for some reason, I picture John Hamm playing him, and like
that makes it more tolerable.
That would make it more tolerable. And
I imagine it's John Lovett.
Shows him like, that's the ticket. Yeah.
Right?
Hey, Emperor. Yeah. Right.
God damn it.
Yeah.
See, that makes that for me.
Yeah. You gonna take on that Horus guy anytime now?
I'm here to read the book.
Yep. Yep.
Get out of here, John.
Yep.
God dang it.
I think Erda was squashed by guy who started it all, Erebus.
Okay.
He showed.
Yeah. You were telling me about that, where he like shows up in her tent.
Yeah, he's the only one who knew where she was. Mm-hmm. He thought maybe he could convert her, but he was prepared if she didn't. He wanted to see what she was capable of. She kind of showed that she wasn't human, even though she tries to make like she is. And she took on like 3 summoned demons of some sort. And then they just come back to it later, and like her place is a waste, and he's just walking all by himself like, well, I can't go to the battle because no one there wants me, and I don't know how to get back home because no one wants me, so, oh well. He's just wandering the earth. Yeah.
Interesting.
Maybe they'll make her model.
But that was off camera. You know?
A little bit, yeah.
You know, it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, well, if the kill didn't happen on camera,
did it happen?
Did it happen?
Right.
I mean, it's your Scarlet Witch blowing up in,
right.
You know, Doctor Strange. It's like, if it didn't happen, we didn't see the body.
Right.
I'm not convinced she's dead.
I could see them doing an update.
She's also a perpetual.
Yes.
So she could just be, like, born somewhere else.
That'd be interesting, I guess, to get her in model form, because I could be wrong, because it's been a long time in a lot of books, and I didn't read them all, but the Siege of Terra was kind of their, like, introduction of her and her role in the thing.
Right.
Like, where they sort of spoiled the whole mystery of
how they got
scattered when it was like, oh, I did it.
Yeah,
oh.
it's like, oh. Okay.
But I guess a model for her, but she never really participates in the war. So they don't need one other than display purposes. Maybe if GW went out of their comfort zone, did a bust, like that'd be interesting to see what she looks like.
But people would love to have an Emperor model.
Oh, yeah.
No rules.
Yeah.
Just literally a model.
Although I remember in the Horus Heresy books, when they were being printed, they had some guy whose rules were, if an Emperor of Mankind's on the battlefield, this happens or whatever.
Yeah, that's right.
They may give him rules, maybe. I feel like no matter what, people are going to be disappointed because how do you give rules to that guy, right? And have it make sense on the battlefield?
Yeah.
But at least a model. I'm sure if they haven't sculpted one, that guy's already working on it, and they'll sell it for $200, and people will buy it.
I might buy it. I might.
It's Emps.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the Emps, the Wandering Emperor. Yeah, I don't know. Otherwise, yeah, you're right. I don't know who else. They could revisit a Karn and Sigismund because they did 3 fights at the Siege of Terra, and Karn was now like,
I suppose.
But he's got a 40K
But he's
model.
got a 40K model, and an updated one.
The old Sigismund one's pretty bad. They could redo his.
Yeah, okay.
His like legs are really bowed wide, and he's like turned sideways.
Baird's Revenge is sort of an updated Sigismund.
A little bit.
You know what I mean? That like
the Templar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like you could paint him yellow, make him stabbing a Chaos Marine instead of an Orc war boss. It's like boom, Sigismund done.
Just wrecking people.
Or make it. Who did he fight that like he didn't do great? Is it Fulgrim? Is that who was hacking at the heels at?
The Saturnine. Yeah, because Fulgrim's up there just wasting in some honor company of the Imperial Fist, and Sigismund attacked basically his legs.
So what you would do then is make him killing one of the Saturnine guard. Is that what they're called? No,
those are the Phoenician.
The Phoenician guard. Yeah. Make him killing like.
Yeah, he was killing some of that.
One of the chosen of
the Emperor's children. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be good. That'd be cool.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, I don't know. And sadly, it might take up too much space at our preview event. Because I still think they'll save the best for the Warhammer Fest in the UK.
Yeah. So yeah, so that was the summary, right? What it ends up being is, in summation, let me explain. No, wait, take too long. Let me sum up. Will be Seraphon, part 2.
Yeah.
Or second half.
Part extra.
Right? Like, besides the little things, second half of Seraphon, we're going to see. A new warband for Underworlds, which will be...
That I think we could say anytime.
I'll guess Bone Splitters.
Okay.
Why not? We're going to see... let's see, the 4th box set for Warcry. And who's going to be in it? What's it called? Let's see if I can find it real quick. What the timeline for Warcry was.
We might get a...
It has a name. I know they gave it a name already for the time for the timeline of Warcry, and I cannot find it.
Sweet. I bet we'll get a. There's got to be a Blood Bowl thing, right? They always do a Blood Bowl thing. If it's Mike Brandt doing it, then it'll be Blood Bowl. Yeah, could be Blood Bowl also, and it'll be some.
So wait, do we know if they're doing like one of every game?
I don't know.
I forgot.
They kind of do at Adepticon.
But do we think they're gonna continue with that, where it's gonna be like they're gonna touch every single game?
Why not? Unless they're announcing the return of a game.
Oh shit!
Like say Battlefleet Gothic.
No,
they haven't hinted at that at all. Unless they decide to make Battlefleet Gothic and put the Arcs of Omen as a thing.
I'm really irritated. I can't find that timeline.
Like Capsaicin irritated, or
more like need to find a toilet immediately irritated.
Oh, that's not good. But sometimes the things that like make you have to go find a toilet.
Yeah. Hang on, we never finished.
Warcry.
So ignore the Warcry thing for now. I was gonna say 2 factions.
Yep.
The factions are gonna be a new Seraphim faction, even though they just came out with one. Because
on a roll, why not?
The whole thing is based on finding one of their temple ships.
Crashed on
right?
Gur.
Crashed on Gur. We're gonna see that, and then we're gonna see them versus
a brand new Chaos Human faction again?
Yes, it'll be a cultist unit this time for Disciples of Siege. No, we had one. He Knights of Slaanesh. We're going to see a Slaanesh.
Yes.
That'll be all 4
That'll
guys.
be all 4.
So that's what we're going to see.
And we've had Undivided ones, right?
No. You know what? Not Seraphim. We're going to get a unit for Dawnbringer Crusade. So we're first one.
Oh, yeah.
Dawnbringer Crusade.
Against Heat Knights.
That's what we're going to see.
That would be swell.
That would be nice. Okay. And then Blood Bowl, we're going to get a star player.
Yep. I bet it's resin.
It'll be a star player for, let's see, they've done the Halflings and Goblins recently. Who hasn't gotten a star player in a while?
High Elves.
Sure. A High Elf star player.
There you go.
Done. Actually, that's not a bad guess.
We think the Lion.
We think Lionel Johnson is going to get teased with the 4th part, or it's going to be, if not the model, it'll be like a shadow, like a silhouette of the model, and we'll get the name of the 4th part.
Because when they teased 8th edition, they did that at Adepticon, where they said Death Guard were going to be featured in the early part of 8th edition, and they only showed us the scythe.
Scythe of Mortarion, yeah.
So they might do that with the Lion, where we only see
his sword, or his helmet,
or his hair,
or like the plume of his helmet, his hair, just a lock of hair. That'd be really
blonde,
funny.
Flowing,
a boot,
just a boot.
That's it. But it's a fancy boot. It's
a fancy black, dark green black boot.
Yeah. And then let's see. Yeah, well, if we're gonna get a little bit of everything, we're gonna get Aeronautica.
Except Titanicus. I guess they don't really show us that.
Titanicus will get a Imperator.
They give us the War Master.
I know, exactly.
So,
Imperator Titan, why not?
Yep.
The big one.
The big one. There's like 3 of them in the galaxy. Yep.
We'll get that. You can buy as many as you want.
Yep.
And play as many as you want. Even though they don't exist.
Warhammer Plus, they'll waste 20 minutes.
No, they're not going to do that again. That did not.
That was at Gen Con.
Plus, Warhammer Plus is established now. They don't need to tease with a new episode. I think we'll get, let's see, for Aeronautica, they're going to add Dark Elves. No. We'll get, like, new guard planes. Something little. That'd be fine. And then we're going to get, for Heresy, we're going to see, we might see a super heavy. We'll probably see just a new tank. Another tank.
Yeah, and I imagine the Falchion Fellblade they'll be able to do in one kit.
But there were plenty of other tanks for Space Marine that, like, they didn't. Did they
discontinued.
Did they do the Whirlwind
right,
Scorpius? Did they do, I don't know, one of those kinds of tanks on a, maybe they did that one already. Maybe planes? No.
Not in Heresy, they really didn't.
Yeah. Or we'll get, like, the double pistol dudes they were referring to. Double pistol or breachers, or they'll get a new type of Marine for Horus Heresy that aren't just an upgrade sprue.
Why not?
I think that covers it. Everything?
That's just about every game.
The Lion.
The Witch.
Seraphim.
The Wardrobe. Yep.
Yeah. I think that's what I'm going to guess.
You know what they ate at the beginning of that? Was Turkish Delight. I've never had that.
I have had Turkish Delight. It's very good.
Is it?
Yeah.
What is it supposed to be?
It's like a soft, like, honey candy. It's weird.
Huh.
It's kind of like a marshmallow, but not.
Let's go try some.
Yeah. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed. Check out our new episodes every Friday on Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Audible, or on Podbean.
You can also follow myself and Llama on Instagram for more. We are at Hyena Paints Minis and at Llama Paints Minis. And as always, we'll catch you next time.